Hello, good evening, and welcome to QUIZZY Monday. We are back, and this time I have guests. Last week, thanks for all the questions that you fired in our improvised Ask Me Anything episode. But now we are back. We are delighted to have James, winner of tonight's Mastermind episode, and also the return of John Robinson of University Challenge and Only Connect fame. So we're going to be chewing over this evening's quiz excellence and getting to the heart of what possesses somebody to do something like Mastermind. So, before we get going, just want to run through the winners of Quizzer and Team of the Week last week. We had a tie for Quizzer of the Week last week. Brian Craythorne and Evan Lynch sharing the spoils. Third was Victoria Gross. In Team of the Week, it was a debut win for Keep the Faith of Quiz Nations Asia Pacific. Second was University College London. The third was American Werewolves in London. Don't forget, you can nominate anyone for Team and Quizzer of the Week. Go to tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. Nominations close at 5 p.m. every Monday. So don't forget, you can put questions and comments in the chat. And we've already, we cover all the big issues here on Quizzy Monday. Gerard says, evening all, I've been reading a very British chat on Facebook about the difference between a cheeky fried egg and a fried egg. It's the matters that really, bring the country to a standstill, that sort of discussion. So, Gerard, keep us abreast if there's any conclusion on that. Now, let us bring James and John onto the stream. Here we are, fresh from Winning Mastermind. James and John, welcome back to the stream.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm just going to turn the volume up so I can hear you very well. Yes, so we'll start with Mastermind because James, you won it. Mastermind semi-final.
I did, yeah, surprisingly, yes.
You'd never done any TV quizzing before,
No.
and then you decided you would start with Mastermind, and now you're in the blooming final of Mastermind. What's happening there, James?
I don't know. I don't know what's happening. It's been was very surprising. I thought I'd just go on. Then I won the first one. I was just kind of happy to have won that and get another lovely free trip to Belfast. But then it won again, and it was just, this is getting out of hand now.
Was there an element of, oh no, I've got another subject to learn, but I can't,
Yeah.
I was going to get my life back, but no, I now have to devote all this time to another subject.
Yeah, so I think we were all saying that before the semi-final. We're all like, oh, whoever wins, we have to do this again. We have to revise for another couple months. And it was like, oh no, so we do. So we're all like very trepidatious, but then I was the lucky sod that had to come back and do it again, do it all over again.
Can you give us an insight for those who haven't done Mastermind of quite how much time it absorbs out of your life each time you're preparing?
I mean, it does. So I did films. I did Nicole Kidman films for the first round. So that was watching films very slowly. I watched them with subtitles on 2 or 3 times a film. So that was a very visual preparation method. It was a bit more, you could just sit down and watch a film. It was a bit more engaging, but this was book revision, which I hadn't really done to that level before. So I found it very difficult, and especially Queen Anne, who people didn't have real names. They had like titles and they would change randomly. So one person had about 4 different names. It was very confusing. And of course, none of that came up. So it was very worthwhile learning that.
We did have some of that because we've been running a prediction competition, people trying to predict questions that would come up in Mastermind. And we had some of that with your set. We had some people put in Sarah Churchill, some people put in her maiden name. And then there was Abigail Hill, who was also known by an aristocratic title. So it was like, we were frantically going, is that an acceptable alternative name? But there are a lot of things, a lot of detailed points like that you have to cover. How did you set about trying to nail such an extensive subject?
So my starting point, the reason I chose the subject was the film The Favourite with Olivia Colman. I said that in the interview, but I don't think it made the cut. So that was why I chose it. I'd seen that film a few times, and it turns out that film is wildly historically inaccurate. It just randomly picks things that happened 10 years before when the film is set and just puts them in. Like Queen Anne's husband was still alive during the time that the stuff in that film was happening, and he's not there. It's a very strange film, but a very good film. So like when I got to the book and I realized I got like a couple chapters in and I realized, oh no, this is pretty much start from scratch. I made I found family trees helpful. Like I'd put Anne at the middle and like work out how they were related to her and how they were friends with her and how they connected. That was quite helpful because again, I was more of a visual learner, and I found doing graphs and sort of charts quite helpful rather than just facts on cards for her, because she was so there were so many people and they were so interconnected, like her uncles and her cousins, and like the succession thing, like with Electress Sophia, was so convoluted. And the big thing that didn't come up in any of the questions was the War of Spanish Succession, which was such a big thing, like Blenheim and all that stuff. But none of that really came up. So loads of battles and dates were remembered that just useless information at the end of the day. Well, there's no such thing as useless information. But
Will G
useless
saying,
for
well
that.
done, James. Some great answers on the GK. Yeah, you're right. There is the thing is you don't know what's going to come up. You've got an entire lifespan, somebody who's significant both in what she did and the things that happened around her on the periphery of her. And I guess you have a choice. You either gamble that things are going to be relatively kind of surface level, or you cover every blade of grass that you possibly can to make sure that nothing trips you up, nothing surprises you. Which approach did you go down?
I went down everything, and I think that kind of tripped me up even more because two of the questions I got were one about her doctors, and Queen Anne had many, many doctors, and I ended up saying the wrong one, which I knew would happen, and it did. And then there was one about the colonel that came and told her that her I think Mary of Modena had a daughter or had a son, and I got it confused with the colonel that came and told her that Marlborough had won the Battle of Blenheim.
Right.
So there are people that connected names and things that come up, but there's only so much you can learn. Like I tried and kept it focused on her, like a lot of like fun stuff that she did. Like one that came up was about her horse racing. She was big on horse racing because she founded Ascot Racecourse. So I knew like something probably about her horse, something a bit more fun about her rather than just politics and historical stuff would come up, and it was her horse racing. So like I tried to keep it balanced, like make sure that I got like the fun side of her, not just serious battles and dates and all that kind of stuff.
Did you feel you developed some sort of affinity with her? I mean, we've spoken to a number of people who've done biographies previously, and then they start to feel a sense of responsibility to the person to kind of represent them. Do you have any sense of that?
A wee bit. Like I really like Queen Anne. I think she's had a bad historical rap. I think Sarah Churchill or the Duchess of Marlborough was really responsible for that. Because when Queen Anne died, Sarah Churchill lived for about 30 years after and just wrote loads about how she was, manipulated by Abigail Hill, how she was, the whole thing about her being a lesbian, which is in the favourite, but is only really supported by her documents. It's only recently, like as history's kind of reappraising a lot of like female figures, that she's come back. So I did feel a responsibility to kind of represent her well, and I did genuinely quite like her. Like I think she had quite a hard life, with her like struggle to have children, her struggle to kind of relationship with her sister and with other people. Like she had a very hard life, and her health was never good. So I did feel a kind of respect and closeness to her by the end. Whether I represented her well or not is a different story, but I tried my best.
I would think you did. You got 9 points. It wasn't a round with a lot of questions tonight. I think everybody got about 12. So
yeah, I think
you're right up there. Did you feel when you sat down in the chair? Did you get a sense? You knew obviously what everybody else had got, but did you have a sense of whether you thought you were in with a shout?
No, I don't think about like how well I'm gonna do. I just take it question at a time. The only thing I remembered about this time, the semi-final, was that I had a really sore head that day, and I was just sitting there like trying to get through the questions as well as I could, because it was filmed quite like earlier in the morning and I hadn't had a chance to go and buy like paracetamol. So I was like just get through this, and then you can go and sort your sore head out, and managed to get through it. But like, I just sat there and I just tried to answer the questions as they came as best I could. And that's all, especially like going into the general knowledge when it was, I was behind. I knew it was only a point, but I just tried to put as big of a gap between me and them as I could.
And I always feel if you get to 20 points, you've got to a hurdle which is psychologically a bit tricky, for everybody else. It kind of feels like a bigger score. We've seen it more than once in series that it can trip people up.
Yeah, and especially when like they had 10, so they needed to get at least, and I hadn't passed because I was deliberately trying not to pass. I knew they had to get at least 10 and no passes, or 11 to beat me, which is not like a massive score. Some of the scores like people have done this series, but is fairly decent. So I was quite happy with how I did on general knowledge. There were some questions that I can't believe I didn't get the answer to, like bowler hat was the big one. Like, that was the sore head talking, but
you can only do what you can do when you're in the chair, though. That's the thing,
at the time.
We'll move on to the second half in a bit. John, bringing you in. PDC World Championships, transportation to Australia, Parks and Rec, Queen Anne. You played our prediction competition, so you've had at least some thought about these. What did you feel about those subjects watching the show?
I'm speaking from a personal point of view. Parks and Rec is the one that I enjoyed the most, just because it's the only one really I knew much about, and I managed to get a few of those questions. But I think for, the transportation to Australia one, when I was kind of looking up stuff to try and choose some potential answers, I think I found that the hardest one, just because I didn't really know, like with the PDC, you can look at a list of who's won or look at, results. And with Parks and Rec, you can look at a cast list of who's been in the show or whatever. But with the transportation one, I was like, I don't really know where to start with this. It seems really hard to kind of get your head around. And Queen Anne as well, with the biography, there's so many different names and places and dates. So I think from a revision point of view, I think probably the Queen Anne and the transportation ones would have been the hardest to get your head around, I think.
Yeah. I always think that TV ones can be tricky, but at least you're only doing what's on screen, so you watch every second of that and you note down everything that's happening, and you can know it's covered.
Although I guess even with that, I suppose you don't know if they're going to ask about who the lighting director was for a particular season or whatever. So
I think Parks and Rec had 200 and something episodes.
It's
a long program, because those American seasons are a lot of episodes.
They are. And Sam's a very good player. Sam's been on the show. Sam plays in Quiz League London. He's a really good player, and he started off like a train, but he kind of second half of that round, he just seemed to be hit with details that he hadn't come across in his research. And when you're talking about, as you say, a couple of hundred episodes, all the little lines of dialogue, all the plot points, all the characters and whatever, there's a lot. But equally, in the lifespan of a monarch who lived a relatively long time, and a lot of stuff happened around her. There's a lot of plot points about her, and it's the art of picking a subject, isn't it? Now we had Michael saying 8 on the darts. Michael is very good on his
surprises there.
No surprises there. But as you say, with PDC World Darts, when I was looking over the answers that people were submitting, I was thinking, I've heard of Priestley, I've heard of Sid Waddell, I've heard of Ray Van Barneveld, I've heard of, it's like, okay, there's a lot of stuff. And actually, they avoided the obvious Phil the Power Taylor.
And so I saw the darts, the book that he used for his revision, and it was that very thick. And that wasn't even the whole, he had to print off the recent ones to put them in the back. So there was a lot to cover.
Wow.
For that
well, I suppose if you're covering every match at every tournament, all the players, all the stories. Interestingly, one of the things predicted was well-known quizzer Kirk Bevins, who's also a darts scorer, referee. I'm not sure what the correct term is. He was one of the people suggested in the competition, and I'm kind of surprised that if a quizzer had known about him, or a writer had known about him, that I'm not sure I could have resisted including him as an answer line. But
I think it's almost too much of a little in joke. I think, isn't it?
It might be too much of a little in joke. So Sam got 7 on Parks and Recs, James 9 on Queen Anne, Darren 10 PDC World Darts, Alison 10 on Transportation to Australia. Pretty even, anybody's game really at that point. These episodes, they film it pretty much straight through, don't they, James? The show doesn't give you much time to breathe after that round.
No, so there's not really a gap. There's only a gap at the end of rounds. So you finish the round, and then before Clive gives you the score, they check it upstairs to make sure that what you said is right, and there's nothing like Clive's allowed as an answer, and it's not a right answer. And they do that, but that's like a couple minutes, like if that. If there's something they have to check, if not, it's just straight through. There's not a lot. I think it takes about maybe 45 minutes to film the half hour, not including the interview at the end. So it does move along. It does go very quickly when you're saying.
Yeah. When you got that break between the halves, we heard that you were talking about, source material, the darts book and stuff like that, and how, one of you was going to have to do all this again. You've had those chats presumably in the green room and the prep before you go into the studio. Was there much chat between you at that halfway point, or is kind of nerves and focus too much in play?
Not me and Sam, because we were like at the end, had a bit of a chat, but there wasn't a lot of. It's not like that much time, and you're all very like nervous, and there's adrenaline going through you because you've just done it, and you have to do it again, and it's like the unknown. I personally prefer the general knowledge round to the specialist subject. Like I prefer not knowing, having that pressure of having to revise and having the pressure of you choosing something that you conceivably like and know something about to get quizzed on. I prefer like the unknown of, if I know it, I know it. If I don't, I don't. Like there's nothing I can really do about it. But there's not that much chat. We kind of chatted before at the hotel when we like met up to go over for filming, and in the car part we talk about like why we chose the subjects, like what we're doing, what we did before, what we'd done in the first round, because obviously none of our first round episodes had been on. I think only one episode had been on, like the very first, because I remember we talked about the very first episode of this series was the one with the crazy high scores. Like everyone had like 25 points, and we were talking about that. And we're just glad that we were nobody from that episode. But yeah, we didn't know like how any of us had done, like whether we'd got 35 points or whether we'd got 20 points or whatever. So it was very relaxed. And then we all, at the end, after I'd done my interview, like went back to the hotel and went to the pub. And because I'm from Scotland, there was only like one flight, so I was going home the next day, and they were all going home that day. So I just stayed with them at the hotel bar until their flights.
Nice. It's nice that there is a chance to mix, because actually we've had a few years where people haven't been able to mix due to COVID. So you got the full experience, so to speak. General knowledge then. Sam went first, picked up 10. He probably, as it turns out, we knew he definitely needed more than 10. He was capable of more than 10. It just didn't happen for him. In fact, none of you really managed to kind of get on a great roll. So in that sense, kind of the sets were fairly matched. There wasn't one where anybody just plowed through it. When you were watching Sam go at it, are you playing along in your head?
Yes, I answer the other people's questions in my head. Like I play, like when I'm sitting there watching other people, I'm reacting just as I would if I was watching it at home.
Yeah.
Like saying the answer if I knew the answer. Some of Sam's answers I didn't know the ones he got. He did very well, I thought.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting watching it back, like watching it live. I think they did really well, but then watching it like recorded, you're like, it amazes me watching myself how long the gaps are between correct answers, because I only really remember the correct answers. I don't remember the wrong ones, and I'm like, oh, there was a lot of wrong answers mixed in with the correct ones.
That's weird, because I only ever remember the wrong ones. I never remember the correct answers. The correct answers have been and gone.
I'm probably more positive. I just remember the right stuff.
Of your general knowledge questions, were there any answers that watching it back tonight you're particularly happy that you got?
COGNAC fan Tutti, without a doubt. Like, I have no idea where that came from. Like, I seem to get the harder ones right, and not the easy, like Bowler Hat and Stone Roses were nothing, but Good Soldier and COGNAC fan Tutti were the ones. But yeah, I don't know where that answer came from. I still know nothing about COGNAC fan Tutti. I just felt it's not going to be like an obvious Mozart opera. It's going to be sort of the B tier. So that was the only other Mozart opera I knew.
Good tactics. Good Soldier was a brilliant answer, has to be said. And yeah, I mean, yeah, looking at it, I mean, you hit the bar with the steeplechase one. It was kind of felt like you could envisage people jumping over hurdles, but kind of came out with the wrong.
Yeah, sport is not my thing. The Bowler Hat question. When I hear cricket, I just automatically switch off. Like, I just know nothing about it. Like, obviously, everyone was like, "Oh, it's obviously bowler." I'm like, I just know nothing about cricket.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, if you don't know it, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you by the end of that round, and it is quite intense, isn't it? That so it's 2.5 minutes. The questions find out, and even to pull out cognac at the end, have the presence of mind to fish that, which, as it turned out, is the sort of answer. Well, that's the answer that won it for you.
So yeah, the week before, so I think they filmed on the Wednesday, and on Monday I was in PCC, and there was a quad on cognac, and I didn't know that answer before Monday night, and that was the last question, and I was like, well, it's definitely cognac because I had that in a quiz 2 days ago.
Well, there's the benefit of doing lots of quizzing.
Yeah, so do PCC, people. Yeah, they'll come in handy.
So you had to sit there, having put 20 on the table, and saw Darren and then Alison not quite make it. Did you, whilst you're watching them and you're playing along, and you kind of keeping score in your head as well, of how they're doing and getting a sense that they're going to make it, not make it?
I kept counting Darren's when I managed to count his. I'm terrible mental counter, so I had to use my fingers. But yeah, I managed to count his 8. I was like, 18. But I kind of lost count with Alison in the middle because I was I don't know what I was doing. I lost count. I lost count at about 5, and I felt she'd gotten more than 5. I think she'd gotten 6 questions right in the time since I lost count at 5. So I was surprised. I was very surprised when they said I was, when I did not think that with 20 I was going to get it. I thought after when I got 20, I was like, I could have gotten a couple more in there to make it a bit more of a doable thing. But yeah, I was very surprised to have won with 20.
Well, it doesn't matter how you win, as long as you win. You got over the line. It was a tight heat. You got the 20 points that you needed. So forevermore, whatever else happens in your quizzing life, you are a Mastermind Grand Finalist.
Yeah.
There aren't that many people who can say that. So yeah, well done on that. Why, when you'd never done any TV quizzing, why was Mastermind the first one that you picked? Why not The Chase or something where you could win loads of money?
That's what everyone asks. Why have you not chosen one that you win money on? And I don't know. I've watched Mastermind and University Challenge since I was like 11 or 12. Like, I just watched them every Monday. They've always been the programs I enjoy. People know, like, Monday night is my night in front of the TV. So I just wanted to do one of them, and Mastermind was just the one that felt like it would be a good go. I had always said I wanted to do Nicole Kidman films. Those were that was the big thing I wanted to do. Mastermind 4 was to do her, and then when I did her in 1, I was like, oh god, I have to find something else to do now. But yeah, that was mainly the reason, was to do Nicole Kidman. Was the main reason I did Mastermind. Which sounds really stupid, but
there are worse reasons, particularly when you know that sometimes people get messages from people who've been covered on Mastermind. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to a message from Nicole Kidman.
She has not reached out as of yet. She's very busy.
She must be very busy though.
Nor has Queen Anne, unfortunately.
Well, I'm sure she would if she could. So, having gone through that twice, What's your subject for the final?
The subject final is Emperor Augustus.
Oh, so another biography.
Yes.
And why him? You went pop culture, you went historical, you stayed with historical.
So because it was kind of a struggle to pick something for the final. Because I think I was like the last one to put in options, so I kind of had like the dregs of what was left. But I'd chosen some, like in my first list of subjects, there was Roman there, and they said, "Oh, if you want to do, something Roman," and I put swords. So I like kind of late Republic Empire era Roman history. So I put forward people like Cleopatra or Augustus, and Augustus was the one that they chose. Roman history is something I've just recently become interested in, the past couple of years, become interested in learning about. So it felt like an opportunity to just learn some more while doing, Mastermind. And his biography is actually a lot shorter than Queen Anne's. So I was like, oh, that's good.
Good choice. Good choice. Well, we look forward to seeing how you do in the grand final. Now we've had this is the second week we've had a prediction competition going on. Oh, hang on, we've got some comments about Augustus. Hope Brian Blessed pops up shouting in the video insert, "Bring me my Eagles." Gerard, I associate Augustus with Brian Blessed shouting, "Has anyone here not slept with my daughter?" I'm assuming that that's, well, Brian Blessed doesn't come up in the final, but no spoilers. No spoilers. We will wait to find out if Brian
I will
Blessed
leave
gets
that
a mention.
to
So anyway, as I was saying, we had this prediction competition. People have sent in 3 predictions for each specialist subject. You get 1 point if you are correct. You get a bonus point. If it comes up, a bonus point if you're the only person who predicted it, and 3 points if you predict one in the general knowledge. So these were tonight's top predictions. In darts, it was the Circus Tavern venue for the First World Championships. In Parks and Recreation, it was Indiana, or was it Pawnee? I can't remember.
It was Indiana. Pawnee came up.
Pawnee, yeah, okay. And for transportation to Australia, there were 3 that had 5 answers, and Queen Anne, none of those came up. Queen Anne, Sarah Churchill did come up, and Taylor Swift, by some bizarre coincidence, came up 3 times in the predictions, but didn't come up in the quiz. If you want to play the prediction competition next week, then look out for us posting about it on Facebook and Twitter. John, you played that competition.
I did.
Kind of lastminute.com.
Yeah.
But what was your basis for your selections?
I mean, what I did is the same as I did last week, where I just had a quick cursory glance over the Wikipedia page for each of them and tried to pick out 3 things that I tried not to do anything that was too obvious. So I didn't do Sid Waddell for the darts because I thought it seemed too obvious. So maybe I should have gone slightly more obvious because he did come up. And Parks and Rec, as I said before, I've watched all of myself, so I think I did that without really looking over it again. But yeah, the other 3, I just sort of looked at a Wikipedia page and chose 3 random things that jumped out.
So yeah, well, there used to be something called the Wikipedia Challenge, I think, on David Clark's blog, Life After Mastermind. So this is kind of, I guess, a little bit like that. And people came up, Indiana, Parks and Rec came up, but actually in the quiz it was Pawnee that was the answer line rather than Indiana. And we did have some people who put Pawnee. Let's have a look at subject to audit and subject to protest, but we think this is correct. We've double checked, but we think this is who won this week. Tim Hall got 6 points. Huang Yi, an All Things Quiz member from China, got 4 points, and Philip Isaac got 3, and everybody else listed below got either 2 or 1 point. John's name is in there. Pam is in there. We got you in at the death there, Pam. So we will then just check everything and pull that together into a leaderboard, so that by the end of Mastermind we will see who the overall champion of guesswork or predictions is in this competition. But thanks everybody for playing, and say look out this week, possibly tomorrow, for us releasing the next one. Pam says thanks for putting my late entry. Pam, a delight. Pam is one of our Patreon members, supports us, as is John. We are quite happy to accommodate everybody who helps keep this channel going. And a segue to this video. So thanks to everybody who supports us as Patreon members. We know in a cost of living crisis, not everybody can, but we appreciate you watching. And if you watch the adverts, that gives us a fraction of a penny each time. Last night we had our members quiz, our monthly members quiz. It was a smartphone quiz on flags. We're going to be posting that in our Patreon group for those who missed it. But that's the sort of thing you can take part in if you are one of our Patreons. Starts at £3 a month. So we are going to move on to University Challenge. Whilst James sits back, basks in the glory of being a Mastermind grand finalist. And we welcomed back Durham and Royal Holloway. It didn't look like it was going to be a tight match at one point, John, and then all of a sudden it was. How did you see the game play out?
Yeah, well, I thought going into the game, having watched their previous matches, I had Durham down as the favourites to win the match between the two of them. That is not the whole thing necessarily. And so I wasn't really surprised that Durham took an early lead, and for half of the match, three-quarters of the match even, they were ahead. That's kind of what I expected. But I was pleased that Holloway came back, because you don't want anyone running away with it. And they were well worth the victory in the end. So yeah, good match all round, I thought.
I thought what was interesting, because we know quite how good Durham are, but there was an abnormal number of negs on their point, I thought, tonight. And I think maybe that is just the kind of the stage of the competition it is. It's the second game. They know if they lose, they've got another game. If they win, they're through to the semi-finals. Maybe you go aggressive to try and win that match. And early on, it was working for them. But what didn't work was when there was some swerves. So we saw Harry Scully buzz in as Parmigiano, but they wanted Parma rather than the person who took their name from Parma. And probably the most egregious one was the one where Radcliffe from Durham buzzed in, and it was the golden ratio and was saying 1.618. And it turned out, if you turned that into a year, who would have been the king?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, well, that just felt a little bit, I don't know, a little bit.
Yeah, I did think as soon as he started saying that, I thought, I bet this isn't going to be the answer here. And then what was even more frustrating is, I think it's Abramovich, is that his name, on the other team?
Yeah.
Buzzed in and without hearing the rest of the question, and then he then said 1.619, I think. And if he'd only, fortunately, it didn't matter in the long run, because they won Holloway, but he obviously should have waited to hear the rest of the question, and then he might have got it.
Yeah. That happened a couple of times where they didn't sit back and wait for the rest of the question. Is there a sort of buzzer fever that hits when you're in the mode of trying to be fast, that you dive in anyway rather than just sitting back?
I think it's tempting, especially towards the end of the match, if you're losing and you think every minute counts and you think you know it. So actually, there's no point waiting to hear the whole question. But I think certainly in the early stages, I guess adrenaline might take over. But you really should hear the whole question if it comes over to you.
Yeah. I think these were two very, very good teams. We've seen them before. We've seen them win very well before. I did like with both of them some great teamwork in the discussion, and you know what that's like, having been on the show. Brown, got 3 buzzes, but she also got some great contributions in the discussions on bonuses.
Yeah, I think since game one, she's been one of the players of the series for me. I think she's come up with some great answers throughout.
Yeah. Durham, everybody came in with a buzz. 3 out of 4 on Royal Holloway. Both captains scored well. These were two pretty tightly matched teams, and the fact that they were separated by essentially a starter and a bonus set, and that was pretty much it between them, I think reflects that they're pretty evenly matched teams. You know the structure of this tournament better than I do, I think, John. Is there a chance that they could meet again in the semis, or if they both get through, would it be the final?
That is a good question. I think if they wouldn't meet again in the semis. I might be wrong, but I've got a feeling that how it works is of the two semi-finalists, two of the semi-finalists have always won both of their quarterfinals, and then the other two semi-finalists will have won one, lost one, and then won the third one. And they always match it up that one of the teams that's won two plays one of the other teams that's kind of lost one, and I think they try to avoid matching up again. So I think if Holloway do end up going through, they'll play the other team that wins 2 straight matches, if that makes sense.
Okay, no, that's good. In terms of the questions, I assume your ears, like mine, pricked up in the first bar or two of "You Can't Stop the Beat" from Hairspray.
Very much so. I think I would have got it even. I mean, she was pretty quick. The one who got it, I can't remember her name now. From Durham, Margot, is it? Yeah. But yeah, I think even a beat or two quicker than You Can't Stop the Beat, and I would have come in a beat or two quicker than that. But yes, that was a very nice set of bonuses. I enjoyed all of those.
Yeah, I thought that bonus set was good. I think having a musical like 9, which is a bit more niche, was quite good. And then perhaps the less obvious songs from some of the other musicals as well.
And that was again good teamwork there, because I think they all kind of offered some different things on those bonuses. So that was good. Yeah. And I liked as well. Well, I was going to say, talking of musical things, I also liked the picture round where it was the musical notes. And Radcliffe, the captain of Durham, started kind of singing some of the notes to work out what character it was from Beat and the Wolf. So I quite like that.
Yeah, I think there's something about genuine musicality, which is a real advantage when you see something like that you can actually hear the notes in your head and you're not just kind of going da 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 da. But so I impressed by that. I thought they were very good. It was good. It was a good show, worthy of those two teams. I'm surprised. I thought it might be a bit higher scoring, albeit close.
I thought that there was a fair few starters that went dead. I think 4 or 5 starters maybe that went dead. It seemed, I mean, maybe I'm just biased because I'm not a scientist, but it seemed like there was quite a lot of hard science this week. Maybe slightly more so than usual. And a fair few of those questions seem to not be picked up. I also think one note I made, I think especially from Holloway's point of view, they spent a long time conferring, which is good because they're discussing things. But I thought at one point when they were losing, I thought you need to get on quicker with your conferring because you're losing and you need to get a move on. And actually it was fine in the end for them, but that was possibly why it was slightly lower scoring, because they weren't really quick on the bonuses.
Indeed. On the subject of hard science, Michael goes, boo!
Agreed.
Resolutely pop culture there. I think the only other one that I would bring, I mean, I like the cities in Africa, but I like the shared middle initial photos one. I thought that was a nice one. But normally the second picture round comes 2/3 of the way through the show, and there was only 3 starters after that. So it was an odd one the way it played out. But anyway, congratulations to Royal Holloway.
I enjoyed just one other, if I can just, one of the bonus set that I thought was particularly good was the Edith Head, the costume designer. Because I think she's someone who should be more well known than she is, really, because she's got all sorts of records in terms of the number of Oscars that she's won. So it's good to see her coming up.
And that was part of the last dash to the line by Royal Holloway, that bonus set, followed by linguistics, followed by sources. So yes, no, good call. We are going to catch up on the What is a Question competition, and then the nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week for this week. When we come back, I will ask James and John what their champagne moment of the week is. And James, as you're uninitiated, this could be anything from tonight's quizzing. It might be related to yourself, but it could be anything about tonight's quizzing that gave you particular joy. We'll come back after these videos and we'll look at that. Last week's answer in need of a question was Curly, and this question won it by Phil Reynolds. The 1943 Rodgers and Hammerstein musical Oklahoma was revolutionary at the time for opening not with a big chorus number, but with a lone voice, initially heard from off stage. Which character is singing? Well done, Phil. This week's answer in need of a question is curry, and you have until Wednesday to vote on the long list. You can vote at tinyurl.com/WITQ curry, and on Wednesday we'll release the finalists. And if you want to submit questions for What is a Question, well, we release a new answer in need of question every Sunday morning on Facebook and Twitter. All you have to do is reply to that post with your question. Deadline for sending in questions is Monday at 4 p.m. Here are this week. Try again. Here are this week's nominees for Quizzer of the Week. Michael Bow, 7 out. Whoa, hello. What's happened there? Let me try for a third time. Here are this week's nominees for Quizzer of the Week. Michael Bow, 7 out of 8 in OQL Division 4. Scott Blish for 12 out of 15 in Pop Solos. Dan Burgess, a full house in OQL USA. Marianne Fairthorne, a QLL full house. Lewis Jones, 12 out of 15 in Pop Solos. Evan Lynch, the inaugural OQL individual champion. Tonight's Mastermind winner. Bruno Ricardo, MVP in Quiz Nation's Portugal Season 8. Richard Silcock for 21-6 in the Wirral Quiz League Handicap Cup Final. Matt Williams for 14 out of 15 in the Pop Culture Challenge. And Sally Wilson, the third and final Counterpoint semi-final winner. And the nominees for Team of the Week are 120 Days of Sodor. They've got a 100% record in the Asian Quiz League Premiership. Bishop's Fist, Quiz League London Division 3 side that beat 2 Division 1 teams in the Cup. Chaotic Good MILF Hotel for their top score in OQL USA. Joey's Nomads, who won the Wirral Quiz League Handicap Cup. Lofthouse Lions, the champions of the Five Towns Quiz League. Manos Castro, the champions of Quiz Nations Portugal. Pericardium, the champions of the Online Quiz League. Quentin Quarantino and the Motley Crew, who both won their Quiz Nations Asia Pacific semi-finals this week, and tonight's University Challenge winners. And as well as nominating players and teams, you can also send in shout-outs. And we have a couple this week. One is Peter Pan's Sock, who won the OQL Team Quiz at Bradford's venue with 110 out of 115. Fantastic team lineup you can see there. We don't know if that was the best performance because we haven't seen performances from elsewhere. And also in Australia, a Quiz Nations Asia Pacific player in Queensland, apparently they know who they are, had to leave their dinner with a friend to join their match because they got their time zones mixed up. So in 85 live episodes and 2.5 years of doing something, I think that's probably the least broadcastable team name that we've had there. So congratulations, Michael McPartland, for that achievement. Chris saying, well done, PPWS. Yes, I should have summarized it as that. But yes, we don't know. Different venues played different team sizes, different kind of match rules, and we didn't get scores. So we don't really know if that was the best. But good shout out to them. Shout out as well to OQL for organising and hosting a very successful inaugural OQL individual championship. John, you played it. How did you find it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Really enjoyed it. Rob Hanna always sets a really good question set, and this was no exception. So yeah, really good day all around.
James, did you play it?
I did. Yeah, it was a good day. It was the first written quiz I've ever done, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah. Well, we do love a written quiz. Catherine is saying, "What was that team name again?" Watch the video back, Catherine, and then work out what the asterisks stand for. Yes, so no, well done to OQR, well done to Evan Lynch for winning that. It was a very good event. So Michael's putting very good TV and film round, I thought. I think it was a very good history round personally, but there you go.
Very well done.
Well done.
Yeah, well, I should have nominated myself, shouldn't I? Anyway, champagne moment of the week. John, what was your favourite moment of tonight?
I think I'll go for one from UC so that James can then do a mastermind one himself. I think just the overall teamwork from both teams I thought was really good. The fact that 7 of the 8 players got a starter in, and yeah, just some really nice moments of team discussion. So it's, I guess, not one specific moment, but just a kind of general vibe of good teamwork and conferring. I thought was really good.
Yeah, excellent, and it was indeed really good team play. James, surprise us with what your favourite moment of the night was.
Well, it was in University Challenge.
No.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, you!
Well, it's probably like the cognac getting that last question, that PCC helped question, which showed that, you know, doing quizzes all the time and the questions do come up if you keep doing it enough. That got me to the final. So yeah, that would be my champagne moment, because it's not like I'm gonna get to the Mastermind final in many weeks.
Yeah, I mean, champagne moment or cognac moment, as we
Yeah.
probably ought to rechristen it. I think for me, I don't know. I enjoyed both shows. I liked the fact, you know, they were tight shows. I think it probably has to be the musicals for me. Just I loved musical theatre,
Yeah,
and
can't wait to watch
that
it.
was a nice set for me. But I just enjoyed watching both shows. I think sometimes it's great to sit back and marvel at a really dominant, brilliant performance. And we have had a few of those in recent weeks. But sometimes it's also nice to not know which way a show is going until the real death. And we had that twice tonight, and that was thoroughly enjoyable. Let's have a look. Catherine put dredging Hemingway out of the black fact sludge pool at the back of my head. Personal champagne moment. Yes. So well done, Catherine. So that is it for this week's Quizzy Monday. Thank you so much, James. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Delightful to see you. I will be back in touch when the final is coming around. John, brilliant to have you back as ever. Next week, I'm very hopeful that we will have at least one person from the Counterpoint final joining us, because I know 2 of the people in the final, so I'm going to try and strong arm at least one of those in to join us, and we'll have whoever we can fish out of Mastermind and University Challenge. Don't forget that you can vote in what is the question at tinyurl.com/WITQ curry, and voting is open till Wednesday, and then we're going to release the list, a short list, to find a winner. Find details of all of those on our Facebook and Twitter channels, and also vote for Quizzer and Team of the Week. James, you could put your vote towards James. He won tonight, going to the final. So vote at tinyurl.com/QW27mar23. And again, we'll be putting all of those votes, details of those votes, out on our Facebook and Twitter channels. And tomorrow probably we'll be releasing the form to play the next week's Mastermind prediction challenge. So until next week, thanks again to John and James and all of you for watching and talking about fried eggs, cheeky or otherwise, in the chat. And we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.